anymore. In fact, I resigned my churches over the summer. And the short answer is because God told me to. Now, what's really good about that is I can say that in this room and you won't go, what? Which was the reaction of my mother, to be fair. I've resigned my 3 churches to do speaking and writing and broadcasting for 2 years. I'm taking 2 years out to do all that sort of stuff. So yeah, it's a bit of a roller coaster ride at the moment. So all I'm going to do tonight is I'm going to tell you a few stories, tell you a little bit about myself, tell you how I find myself in the position that I am at the moment. And I don't mean standing at the front here, I mean, you know, what I do day to day. So I'm not from a Christian family at all. I was christened as a baby, like lots of people are, but my parents never took me to church. So I only started going to church at about the age of 13, 14. And this was in part because I started going to the Christian Union at school because you got into lunch earlier if you had a pass for Christian Union. So I got a pass for Christian Union so I could get into lunch earlier. And I was sat one day with my friends from Christian Union, my friend Katie, who's now godmother to my kids. And I sat with Katie at school and I saw this vision of what I can only describe as manliness sprinting across the quad at my secondary school. I call it a quad, that makes my school sound posher than it was. It was just a patch of grass in the middle of the school where I had our lunch. And this vision of manliness leapt across the quad with his violin case beside him. And I said to my friend Katie, who's that? And she said, that's the vicar's son. And I thought, I'm going to go to church. So Graham and I have been married for 18 years, that was the guy. Just like the Canadian Mounties, I always get my man. So off we went, I started going to church, by and large because I fancied the vicar's son. That's when I started going to church. I only went to church for a snog and I ended up with a dog collar, so I think God had the last laugh on that one, don't you? So I was brought up in Sheffield, North Sheffield in fact, at Walkley, Hillsborough, that kind of area. Fantastic place to grow up. My mum was a school cleaner and my dad worked in the steelworks. And it's only just recently that I've worked out that my mum followed me through school. So she was the cleaner in the nursery school when I was in the nursery, and then she was the cleaner in the infant school when I was in the infants. Then she did a stint as a dinner lady when I was in the juniors, because the cleaner had been there 25 years and wasn't prepared to leave. And then when I moved up to secondary, she was the cleaner at the secondary school. And it only hit me like 2 weeks ago that that's what she did. And I went, were you following me? She went, yeah, of course I was. She's keeping a very close eye on me and my older brother who's 4 years older than me. Growing up in Sheffield in the 1980s was an interesting experience. If any of you know anything about Sheffield at all, you'll know that politically, we call it the Socialist Republic of South Yorkshire is what we call it. It was very left-wing, it was very socialist, and during the 1980s, of course, lots of industrial cities found that heart ripped out of them. I remember vividly my dad being made redundant on Christmas Eve in 1984. First time I'd ever seen my dad cry, and the last time I've ever seen him cry actually. I remember as a small child going upstairs, he got in from work, and he got absolutely bladdered. And he wasn't in the habit of doing that, but he'd lost his job. So he went upstairs, and Mum went, shh, Dad's sleeping, shh, Dad's sleeping. So I went up, and my dad was crying in bed, and I remember it very clearly. And I remember that having a real impact on me. And what's really interesting is it affected me and my brother in separate ways. So it made me be really quite strident and, you know, quite political and all that sort of stuff. And it made my brother go to become very, he's very consumerist. In fact, he deals in weapons parts, and he runs businesses, and he's very, he's very right-wing. But also it's really interesting how that affected us both differently. But yeah, I remember, and I know I've done quite a good job. I mean, I don't know what your politics are in the room, but I can probably guess. What happened recently, we went to a 1980s party recently, me and Graham. And Graham went as a Rubik's Cube, which was the easiest costume I've ever done. And I went as Margaret Thatcher, full latex mask. And I came down the stairs, and my son, who's 12, turned to his sister and went, who's Mummy dressed up as? And Ruby went, that's that nasty lady that took our granddad's job. I have done a good job as parenting. It's not brainwashing, it's steering in the right direction, or the left direction. Anyway, so that's a little bit of my political background. But yeah, so I came to faith through a church that just loved me and nurtured me and listened to me. If you haven't already worked it out, I love being the centre of attention. Nothing gives me a greater thrill than a whole room full of people looking at me. It's what I love to do, alright? And when I was little, my mum would say, "Oh, Katie, you're a dreadful show-off." You know, like it was a bad thing. And I went along to church, and they seemed to think it was quite a good thing. And so what they did is they let me read the lesson at the front, and they let me do the intercessions, and they listened to me, and they made me feel really valued. And that made a massive difference to me. That made such a difference because there was a place where even as a teenager, people wanted to know what I'd got to say. And they didn't mind if I shouted, and they didn't mind if I got it wrong, and they didn't mind if I was a bit, sort of teenagery, but they allowed me that space to be heard and to speak. And so that was really formative. And that bunch of people that guided me to a point of commitment are still my friends now. Katie's godparent to Arthur, so that's fantastic. So off I went to do sixth form and all that sort of stuff. And then off I went to Trinity and All Saints University. Now, it was Trinity and All Saints when I was there, and it was part of the University of Leeds. So whenever anybody asks me where my degree's from, it's from the University of Leeds, that's where my degree's from. But it's now called Trinity University. And I genuinely did not realise that Trinity was a Roman Catholic college until the first day I got there, alright? And I'm sat in the chapel, and I'm looking at the crucifix, and I'm thinking, this isn't what I was expecting. And so we had Mass and all that sort of stuff, and I ended up worshipping as a Roman Catholic there for 4 years, because that made the most sense, because that's where all my friends in the rugby team worshipped, that's where everybody else worshipped. I went to the Christian Union, I lasted 15 minutes, because I just couldn't face it. I just thought, these are not my people. So I only lasted a few minutes at the Christian Union, so I ended up worshipping as a Roman Catholic. And Father Pete, who was the chaplain there at the time, I would go up for communion for the blessing, because obviously I wasn't allowed to receive not being a Roman Catholic. And every time he would go to give me the host, and every time I'd go, I can't have it, and he'd go, oh, just have it for goodness sake. And so I worshipped there for 4 years, which was an amazing experience. I did teaching practices at Leeds Girls High School. That was my first teaching practice. Ooh. I know, right? And then I taught at Buttershore Upper School after that. Which it probably isn't called Buttershore Upper School anymore, but it was at the time. So I went from Leeds Girls High to Buttershore Upper School. My favourite bit of teaching at Leeds Girls High was one day when I thought I'd had a tough day. I hadn't had a tough day. I was a student teacher. It wasn't a tough day, all right? It was an easy day. And I walked into the staff room, and one of the members of staff went, "Are you okay, my dear?" I said, "I've just had a really tough lesson with the upper fourth," like that, or whatever it was. And she said, "Would you like something from the medical cabinet?" And I said, "I've not bruised my knee, don't need a plaster, don't need any Savlon." And she said, "No, not that medical cabinet." And sure enough, she went over to the medical cabinet in the corner of the staff room, opened the thing, and there was a jar of TCP and a bottle of brandy in the corner of the medicine cabinet. And she poured me a shot of brandy into the eye bath. She said, "Have that, you'll feel a lot better about things." I'm sure they don't do things like that at Leeds Girls High School now, but I had a shot of brandy in an eye bath, and that was my introduction to teaching, and I thought, maybe I do want to teach in the independent sector after all. And then I went to Buttershore Upper School, which was an experience in itself, and that was much more. That was much more that I felt at home there. It was more my kind of place to teach, really. And then I did a teaching practice at Priesthorpe School as well. If any of you know those places. So yeah, I love teaching. Absolutely love teaching. I never expected to do anything else. That was all I'd ever wanted to be, all I'd ever wanted to do, and felt that it was a strong vocation. It was what God was calling me to do and was calling me to serve as. And I'd chosen to be an RE teacher. Any RE teachers in the house? Oh, brilliant. The reason I chose, I can say what I think then. The reason I chose to be an RE teacher was because my theory was, if you go for the subject that everybody thinks is rubbish, then it's really easy to be good at it. That was my theory, all right? And because if people's expectations are really low, you don't have to go really high. Yeah, I'm still bidding on this on being a vicar. That's why I became a vicar after a teacher. People's expectations of something are low, then you don't need to go very high to be the best one at it. And I like being the best one at something, all right? That's what I like to be. You know, I was head girl. I was one of those kids that, you know, at the pantomime when they said, "Could we have someone out the front?" I used to elbow other 6-year-olds out of the way, like, "Get off the road!" You know, I like to be at the front, and I like to be the best, and I like to be in charge, shall we say. Pity the bloke who's married to me. Anyway, so I never expected to do anything else. I never expected God to call me to do anything else. And so I left Trinity and All Saints. We got married a year after I graduated, and ended up with, well, this gives you a hint of what kind of person I am. There were 450 people at my wedding. I said my wedding, our wedding, obviously. But I invited everyone, from the woman who was the dinner lady at my primary school through to the woman that I met on the bus the day before we got married. You know, it was one of those things where I said, oh, just come, it'll be fine, just come, it'll be fine. We had a great day. Got married, teaching, had kids, all that sort of stuff. I've got a daughter, Ruby, who's 15, and a son, Arthur, who's 12. That's the moment where you say, I don't look old enough, so we're going to do that again. I've got a daughter, Ruby, who's 15.
No.
It's the Holy Spirit. It's the wrinkles. It's true. It's true. I was talking to a taxi driver in London about that today. Because he'd got a crucifix hanging from his mirror, and I said, are you a person of faith? And he went, yes, sister, I am. And so we ended up praying, it was brilliant. And he said, you look so young. And I said, it's the Holy Spirit. It's better than Botox. Anyway, so where was it? Ruby. Ruby's 15, Arthur's 12. Ruby is, you know when you boil a sauce down to make it more concentrated? That's Ruby. Alright, so I am the quietest person in our house. And then Arthur is on the autistic spectrum, which makes for very interesting living. I'm sure you come into contact with autistic learners, which is just brilliant. He's 12 years old and he sees the world in a completely different way to how I might see it. So one of my favourite is in mainstream education at the moment. Well, he was today, might not be tomorrow, but we'll see. He's internally excluded today, but there we go. That's how it happens, isn't it? So one of my favourite Arthur stories comes from when he was about 8 years old, and we were teaching him about dressing himself. So what he finds really hard is making decisions. So you have to give him closed decisions. You have to say it's this or this. You can't just go, what do you want for your tea? That won't work. You have to say, do you want chicken or fish, kind of thing. You know, always say the chicken, and it mustn't touch anything else. That's what Arthur will go for. So we said to him, we want you to go upstairs, and I want you to think about what you want to wear today. Okay, he said, okay, I'm going to look at mummy, eye contact. It's December, and it's snowing. Think really carefully. Right. Okay, so he looks at me and he went, December, snowing. All right, December, snowing. Go upstairs, get changed, come downstairs, and go to sledding. So off he went. About 30 minutes, like we didn't banging around upstairs, about 30 minutes later, he appeared at the top of the stairs dressed as a Christmas tree. Isn't that brilliant? Isn't that genius? And it lit up, and he had presents on his feet and a star on his head. We went out sledding dressed as Christmas trees that afternoon, because I just thought I can't do any better than that. And then my other favourite Arthur story, that was quite a long time ago, my other favourite Arthur story at the moment, and I have loads, I must write them down at some point, but my other favourite Arthur story comes from the other week. Ruby's 15, she's in year 11. She's thinking about what's next, you know, after her GCSEs. So she was sat around the table having a chat, and I said, what have you done today? And Ruby said, oh, it's been career day today at school, career day. And I said, oh, that's really interesting, career day. And how did you find it? Oh, it's fine, yeah, we had big conversations about, you know, about careers and all that sort of stuff. But I'm really struggling, Mum, because I don't know what career to choose. And Arthur, without missing a beat, went, well, I wouldn't choose North if I were you. North Korea? So we had to explain to him that it wasn't that kind of career. It was Korea, not Korea. And he went, all right, okay then, because don't choose North Korea, because you'll never get out again, was what he said. And I just thought, isn't that amazing that his brain went to that place? Just fantastic. So yeah.